So one of the most important aspects of a transaction is the financing.
Yeah.
Because we don't have as many cash offers, which means if the financing can't get through, it's not going anywhere.
You have no deal.
No money, no deal. So let's talk about financing. When does this start? When does the financing process start?
Well, if you're a buyer, it's the first step, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the last thing you want to do is get into the process, find the perfect house, and then not be able to get money for it.
Mm-hmm.
So the first step is to get pre-approved and pre-qualified by a lender.
With a letter from a lender, and if you have a cash transaction, you want to get a letter from your bank just proving that the money's available, because there's a big difference between cash and potential cash.
Yeah.
Some people say it's going to be cash, but I got to do this, this, and this before I get it. You want to make sure and clear and present so that you can present to whoever you're buying that how available that cash is.
As a seller, would I be getting a letter that proves that? Can I ask for that letter?
It's called a proof of funds letter, and your bank sends it and says so-and-so has this much money available in their account right now, and that is the most golden letter you can get from a bank.
What's the difference between a cash offer and a finance offer? Because if I have the money in my financing, isn't that kind of like cash?
Well,
so if Chad just explained cash and he has a proof of funds letter sitting there, they're going to present that to you as a seller. So if I'm over here and I'm a buyer and I have financing lined up, I better have a piece of paper called a pre-approval letter so I can take that with my offer to you as a seller. And sometimes that's just as good as that piece of paper from Chad.
You want it to be competitive.
We want to compete, and so we have to have that finance letter, the pre-approval, done as soon as possible so we can present it with our offer.
So what does that letter say?
Well, it says that so-and-so, the buyer, has met with the lender and they are approved for financing. And there's usually contingencies in that letter saying that it has to meet appraised value. They have to verify employment. They have to verify proof of funds for their down payment and things like that. Another important part that we look at when we're presenting offers to our seller is there are lenders who are more reputable than others. Lenders who are consistent and have a reputation for closing on time and making the process easy, and lenders who are consistently late with closing and have a reputation for having a lot of stress on the last week of closing. And so we take that into consideration when we present an offer to a seller saying, hey, this lender has a great reputation. And there are some lenders that when we have that paper, it's to us as good as a cash proof of funds letter.
Can we help someone if they don't know who to use?
Yeah.
We can absolutely make recommendations to some top experienced lenders that we use. So don't hesitate to call us for an option there. We'll help you connect with the right group.
Can someone begin looking for houses based on that pre-qualification?
That's how it should work. I mean, what happens many times is someone might look at homes that they like, fall in love with a certain price range, and find out they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating because once you start going higher in price, it makes the ones lower in price sometimes more difficult to look at. So have that be your first step. Know what you can buy, and then look in that price range only.
But what if I know I'm in a good financial situation? I know I make good money and I have good credit. Do I really have to go all that way before I start looking for houses?
Yes. I mean, what happens, let's say you're in a good financial situation, you have excellent credit, you find the house that you love, you make an offer on it, and you don't have that letter from a lender, they're not going to take your word for it. And so you might not even be considered against two other offers that have pre-qual letters.
So I've got a pre-qual letter. Is there anything you as my agent need to know about that financing besides what's on that letter?
Yeah, well, absolutely. In that letter, it's going to tell us what type of loan you have, the terms, the rate, the cash required, because those are all elements of our offer that we put in, right? And so with those terms, we can determine how to correctly prepare an offer. We need to know who the loan officer is and how to get a hold of them. And then we can talk about the closing costs and how we're going to negotiate those in the transaction as well.
What about for a seller? Does the financing, that part matter?
Yeah. Well, there is probably, the best type of financing is cash. It's just there.
Because it's not financing.
Yeah, because it's not financing. The best form of payment is cash. And so, secondly, it's conventional financing because there are not a lot of restrictions with that.
Yeah.
And thirdly, it's the government loans. And there are a few restrictions there. which aren't, I mean, somewhat, usually a seller's not going to say, no, I'm not going to take this offer because it's government. But if you have a government versus a conventional, there's a little less risk with the conventional.
So what are the types of government loans?
Okay, yeah. So the types of government loans are, you have FHA, which is federal housing loans, federal. You have Idaho housing, which is an Idaho federal housing loan. I mean, it's the state getting involved with the financing. You have VA, which is veterans, loan for veterans. And you have rural development, which is a zero down thing to promote activity.
So the reason they do government subsidized loans is because conventional money and lenders require such a big down payment that you've got a group of buyers that need assistance. And so the government says, hey, we'll help and subsidize your down payment, but the home has to be in a certain condition if we're going to get involved.
So does that restrict on what a person can buy based on their financing? What
does.
kind of house?
I mean, if you're looking to buy a fixer-upper, you know, that needs paint, that has broken windows, doesn't have smoke detectors, handrails, maybe some electrical issues, open panel boxes, you aren't going to be able to get a government loan on that. It's going to be conventional financing. So yeah, you have people that want to buy a fixer-upper, but they can only get a government loan. They're in a really tough spot.
So as a seller, are you guys going to help me know that? Because don't we have to tell people that I'm willing to accept certain offers?
Yeah, good point. Because if we know that your house it really does have broken windows and the plumbing doesn't work well, there is chipping paint, we don't want to offer government loans to the potential buyers that are going to come through. So we'll take that right off the list in the beginning.
Yeah, and that's a good point because there are, a lot of people don't know this, but there's a private section to every listing that are for realtors only. And basically, if it's a fixer-upper, we're going to say that this is only for cash or conventional financing. It's not available for the government loans. And so realtors will be able to know, it's like, oh, well, this isn't going to meet your criteria, and it won't even show up on their list.
So so I don't have to fix things.
No.
But could I offer my listing to government loans if I'm willing to fix things?
I mean, you can, but at that point, you might want to do the work beforehand and do a little fixer-up. And I mean, it's just, that opens a door for a whole nother type of home. I mean, how far do you want to go?
Okay.
And it depends on the home. There might be some really simple things that you can do. And if so, yeah, definitely. Because then you can open it up to a broader audience. But if it's a real fixer-upper, I mean, you might just, it's case by case. And that's where we can
let's not get caught up. It's not that major of an event.
Yeah.
These government loans they're not looking for you to, update the colors.
Yeah.
It just has to be livable. And it can't be dangerous. And if you keep those things in mind, you can qualify on the house.
To keep that in perspective, I'd say the high majority of all homes are going to qualify for all types of financing.
That's right. But it is good to know that there are some exceptions.
So who do I talk to if I'm wondering about whether my house will qualify for all that stuff?
Yeah, talk to your listing agent.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if you're enjoying these smart messages and you know anyone else that we could help as well, please introduce us. We'd love to help them as well.
I think that's all of them that I can think of.
Okay. So with those, are there any restrictions on buying a house if you have that kind of financing? Like, all right, stop. Okay. And you take it from there?
Yeah.
All right, we need to stop.
Yeah, stop. Now tilt your head to the left. Perfect. Other way. Okay. Sit up a little straighter.
That's it.
All right, let's bust this one out without even thinking about it.